Welcome, everyone. Those of you who've chosen to come in from the Church of the Outdoors and be inside together today, and those of you who are joining us through the recording of this service. I'm glad to be connecting with all of you. Let's have 3 deep sighs together to help us just settle in here together. My name is Jenny Gelfand, and our minister, the Reverend Dr. Leon Dunkley, will be giving the reflection today. If you're a visitor to our service, we have a guest book on the back table, which would be lovely if you would sign that. And there are also on that table some hearing devices. If you have any issues with hearing, please feel free to use those. Take a look around you at the people who are gathered here. Perhaps you don't know somebody who's sitting near you. You don't know their name, you don't know who they are. So we're going to take just a minute, less than a minute, a few seconds, just to introduce yourselves if there's someone near you whose name you don't know. Thank you. Thank you. Let's come back. So, I'm guessing it would be a good idea for a lot of people to stay after service and continue to introduce yourselves and get to know each other a little bit better. Today is the Lunar New Year, also known as Chinese New Year, and it's a reason for celebration for many, many people all over the world. In Mandarin, you wish friends New Year happiness or good New Year's by saying Xin Nian Hao. That's pretty easy. So we're going to try that. Xin Nian Hao. Xin Nian Hao. And also, as a part of what you may do later today, is share food with your friends or the gift of food among each other. Leon. These might go somewhere else later. Who knows? We are entering the year of the rabbit. The sign of the rabbit is a symbol of longevity, peace, and prosperity in Chinese culture. 2023 is predicted to be a year of hope. I sure hope so. Next week, following the service, this church will have our annual meeting. You can attend. There's more information about it in the order of service, where you'll also find other announcements, and there's more information also on the website and in the e-newsletter. If you're not receiving that and would like to, just let somebody know before you leave. Any other announcements that I don't know about? She's pointing at somebody. Sue Rubel, come on up.
baskets. Think spring flake auction. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, there is more information. We have a really great tradition of having an auction. It's for a couple of years anyway in the spring, and the information is on the church website and in the newsletter if you haven't already heard about it. For almost a year now, we've been singing the hymn, "This Is My Song," in solidarity with the Ukrainian people who have been suffering an unprovoked attack by Russian forces. I think that we should also acknowledge that all over the world there are zones of conflict where people are suffering armed abuse, who are the victims of wars they want no part of. Perhaps we can also include all those people in our thoughts, people who long to live their lives in peace. Please stand as you're able and join me in singing our opening hymn, 159. After these words by John O'Donohue, we'll have a period of silence. It's a strange and wonderful fact to be here, walking around in a body, to have a whole world within us and a world at your fingertips outside you. It is an immense privilege, and it is incredible that humans manage to forget the miracle of being here. Rilke says, being here is so much, and it is uncanny how social reality can deaden and numb us so that the mystical wonder of our lives goes totally unnoticed. We are here. We are wildly and dangerously free.
Good morning and good Sunday. Does everyone have a yellow slip? Does anybody not have a yellow piece of paper? We'll need it towards the end of the service. I'm just making sure. I'd like to begin with a poem by a man named Jim Scott. He writes, far beyond the grasp of hands, or light that meets the eye, and past the reaches of the mind, there find the key to nature's harmony in an architecture so entwined. Like the birds whose patterns grace the sky and carry all who join in love expanding, the message of peace will rise in flight, taking the weight of the world upon its wings in the oneness of everything. I feel fat. You have a singular laugh, Hope. I feel out of shape, and this new way that we're living is probably the cause of it. My body is literally changing. First I gain weight and then I lose it. And then I gain it and I lose it again in brand new places. My chest and my belly are plumper and my waist is withering away. I had to drill 2 new holes in my belt to keep my pants from falling from my hips. My body is changing and I really don't know why, not just yet. So I went on a few diets. I tried an exercise plan or 2. I always gave up or gave in. It turns out that I'm not a joiner. I'm not on board. I'm not on the train. I need to go my own way. And so I try things and then I turn away and I go off in my own direction. Like the poetry of oneness, I'm skeptical about certain things. I see the holes in things. Oneness is always a good thing, it seems. But oneness means being with people with whom you disagree. So I'm skeptical and I turn away. End quote. This story is one part fiction and one part autobiography. I do feel fat and out of shape, and I'm vain enough to think that that matters. I am gaining and losing weight, and I feel out of shape, and I did drill 2 holes in my belt last year and everything. But the stuff about not being a joiner is not really true. It isn't really even true-ish. I say this as a jibe at the new House representative out of New York's 3rd Congressional District. Many of you may be keeping up with this, I'm not sure, but a man named George Santos, a Republican representing northern Nassau County, Long Island, and northeastern Queens. George Santos, if that is his real name, just lied his way into Congress. He lied about his education and he lied about his upbringing. He lied about his professional life and he lied about his own mother's death. Tragically, I guess, his mother died on several occasions. Once in Manhattan in the South Tower on 9/11 in 2001, and then again a few years later after a long, arduous battle with cancer. If you were like me, you are thinking right now, trying to make sense of it all, but you should know that the records show that she was not in the South Tower when tragedy struck. And wasn't even in New York in 2001, but was living in Brazil at that time. My bitter, true-ish joke is a play on something that Santos said in real life, whatever real life means to George Santos. Santos, who is Catholic, claimed to be Jewish. He claimed that his Jewish grandparents fled the Holocaust, fleeing from Belgium in 1940, even though published reports say his grandparents were living and were born in Brazil and were living there before the Holocaust. When confronted with this, Santos asserted that he was not saying that he was Jewish. He said that he was Jew-ish, which made great headlines in the press. All of this is to say that it's just so important to be honest in life. And being in community helps to keep us honest in life. It keeps us grounded. Even when things around us are completely falling apart, we can pull things back together and keep moving forward. My colleague and poet, the late Rip Maston, wrote a poem called A Friend. He wrote, if you're like me, even though you're not quite sure of the question, you go out looking for the answer. And every now and again, you bump into someone who is looking good and looking wise, and so you tag along behind them, picking up the punchlines and thinking, hot damn, this is the one that's gonna get me home. And if you're like me, you go along with him until they say something stupid and do something human, and the whole thing goes off the edge of the table and shatters like a lamp. Sometimes, when it matters enough, you try to put things back together again, and what you come up with is far from perfect, but it's a whole lot easier to live with. And then, if you're like me, you go out looking again. Faith is like that, sometimes. Bright and shiny at first, shattering sometimes, but more beautiful after the recovery. Unitarian Universalism is like this. It's not quite sure of its question, but it searches fervently for an answer. The one that is great enough to take us home. It reaches for the heavens, and it seems likely to get us there until it says something stupid or does something human and falls and shatters like a lamp. I'm 57 years old. I've been a part of this faith for a half century now, and I've seen it shatter many times, time and time again, as many times as I have shattered in these last 50 years. And yet, for reasons that I know deeply, I have always gathered the pieces. I have always repaired the breach, no matter the risk, no matter the cost. My sense of beauty, my sense of love, it drives me. It always drives me. It is the deepest gift that I know. Now I say that as a man, I say that as a man who is without a partner and without a child, but had I them in my life, this drive would still be my deepest gift, because it would drive me to provide for them. It would drive me to see to their safety and to their well-being. It would drive me to see to their growth and their prosperity, and to see and to accompany them on the journey that keeps us deeply interconnected. Do you feel a driving passion in your life? How does it come up for you? How do you feel about it? Do you feel this way? Do you feel passionately about your work or your family? Do you feel passionately about your spiritual journey or about the journey of your heart? How do you feel about the journey of your soul? For far beyond the grasp of hands or light that meets the eye, past the reaches of the mind, there find the key to nature's harmony in an architecture so entwined. In a song called The Oneness of Everything, the artist Jim Scott reminds us of our interconnection, our closeness with one another and with the world. And to those that say, to those of us who say, I'm not a joiner, I go my own way, I say me too. I too see the holes in things. I'm not caught up in a naive romance about God and the cross, about love and community, about peace and justice in life. I am caught in something that is grittier than this, tougher than this. It is not ruled by fear. It is not fooled by scarcity. It is not driven by lack or by absence. It is driven by something that is much more basic and far more beautiful than this. It's driven by something that is not afraid to fall to the floor and shatter like a lamp. But it does so time and again, each time growing wiser in the process, each time knowing that we pull ourselves back together again. Bob Dylan, I agree. I won. Bob Dylan writes, ain't it just like the night to play tricks when you're trying to be so quiet? And we sit here stranded, but we're all doing our best to deny it. And Louise holds a handful of rain, tempting you to defy it. And lights flicker in the opposite loft. And in this room, the heat pipes just cough. And the country music station plays soft, but there's really nothing to turn off. Just Louise and her lover so entwined. And these visions of Johanna that conquer my mind. So beautiful, this entwining. For through it we reach for such beautiful things, and we always reach for them, and we always miss them, and we always do just fine. What makes this so? What makes us believe it? What gives us faith enough to trust? For those of us who believe that the best answer to this question is God and Jesus, I say wonderful. See that it leads you to the truth. For God and Jesus, the truth means healing the sick and feeding the hungry and caring for the weakest among us and always praying in private. If this is not your truth, if it isn't true for you, but only true-ish, real faith will shatter your illusions. And I pray you have access to something grittier, gritty enough, graceful enough to help you to gather up the pieces and put things back together again and go out looking again in faith and deepest compassion. We reach for such beautiful things in life. We always reach for them, and we always miss them, and we always do just fine. What makes this so? For those of us who believe that the best answer to this question is beloved community, I say the same. I say wonderful, but see that it leads you to the truth. And spiritual truth is abundant. It is rich beyond all measure. Now, I wish that the annual church budget at North Chapel and the spiritual truth were one and the same. Some people believe that these two things really are one and the same. Have you heard of the prosperity gospel? Anyone? Yeah. According to HarperCollins, the Dictionary of Religion, the prosperity gospel does not exist. There's no entry for it. Thank God. There's no entry for prosperity gospel. It's really not a religious practice. It's a scam that happens in churches. The term prosperity gospel is not defined by HarperCollins. It is defined, however, by the likes of John Oliver, the late-night host on HBO. Oliver explains that churches are a cornerstone in American life. There are 350,000 congregations in the United States, and many of them do great work feeding the hungry and clothing the poor. But this is not a story about them. This is a story about the churches that exploit people's faith for monetary gain. Now, the mechanism of that exploitation is referred to as the prosperity gospel. It's the cynical distortion of what the holy word is all about. The prosperity gospel is a pattern of predatory behaviors among certain exploitive leaders, particularly televangelists. Good people send good money, tens of millions of dollars, because their leaders regularly preach the prosperity gospel. As Oliver states clearly, the prosperity gospel argues that wealth is a sign of God's favor, and donations will result in wealth coming back to you. Right? So give the church money, plant a seed, and your credit card debt will go away. He gives a few examples of this, and then he says, all of this would be amusing if the targets of these messages were not often vulnerable people. Vulnerable people whose lives are hard, vulnerable people whose hearts are breaking, whose spirits are tender, vulnerable people, not so unlike you and me, people who seek the warm embrace of something real, people who have not found belonging, and who believe that they cannot find belonging except for an impassioned community of strangers on TV. It is so easy to fall down, so easy to lose one's way, and to be convinced, if the timing is right, that we can buy our way to salvation. There's a saying that says, if you don't believe in something, you'll fall for anything. Believing that the heavens are far above us, or believing that they are far above the clouds of rain, we should think carefully about what it is that we believe. And this is why theology is so important. It's so important to have access to the good news right here and now. A poet says, what are you waiting for? Believe in me. Isn't it love in this life that you need? You can offer your soul on an altar of sacrifice, but give your heart to me. Let's bring heaven down here. Let's bring heaven on down. I don't want to wait for the angels. Let's bring heaven down here. Radical ministry tells us that the kingdom of God is within you and is everywhere around you, and everywhere you go, you carry a little piece of heaven. The country blues singers say that all of heaven is buried in the heart. The Broadway performers remind us that flowers of thy heart, O God, are they. May they not pass like seeds away, their heritage a sunless day. God save the people. Our cries are welcome in the house, just so you know. We belong to all of these traditions, regardless of what we now may choose to individually believe. Our choice is our freedom that we enjoy. This tradition of freedom is hard won by great effort and over time. We inherit a brave history of struggle, of triumph, and of fiercest witness. And this tradition, this history of fellowship, is what we are renewing today. We offer a hand of fellowship today. We renew membership today. There are people who are joining the church with us today. To offer one's hand in fellowship is a powerful thing, and it is so because we are powerful. It's hard to remember that sometimes. It's hard for me to remember when I'm thinking that I'm fat. We are all truly powerful, immensely so, when we stand together. To offer one's hand in fellowship is a powerful thing. Recalling her first heart-to-heart connection with her dear friend, James Baldwin, Maya Angelou had this to say. She said, "When I first met James Baldwin, he and I were young enough to believe ourselves were independently salvageable. We became friends in the late 1950s, just as the United States was poised to make a quantum leap into the future. Just as Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and other Southerners were girding themselves for the second Civil War in 100 years. And just when Malcolm X was giving voice to that anger in the street and in the minds of northern black city folk, in that riotous pulse of political fervor, James Baldwin and I met and liked each other. She said, in those days, men were supposed to be men, and women were supposed to be women and never really need one another at all. The courage to extend one's hand and say, will you be my brother? Will you be my sister? Was often lacking, but James Baldwin was a brother. Incredible, end quote. Maya Angelou had the courage to extend her hand in fellowship, and so too must we, in order to extend the bond of fellowship to those who are formally joining the church today. As I said earlier, this fellowship practice is something that we are renewing, not only because of the challenge that COVID has presented, but because North Chapel is rebuilding and recovering after challenge. Renewing fellowship is one of the ways we rebuild. To offer one's hand in fellowship is powerful. It has been ritualized over the years by the Reverend William Channing Gannett in St. Paul, Minnesota, back in 1879. William Channing Gannett was born in Boston in 1840, but he was named after and christened by William Ellery Channing, the founder of American Unitarianism. So it goes back a ways. At 39 years of age, William Ellery Channing crafted the bond of fellowship that's on one side of your yellow pieces of paper. So can you pull that out for a second? He crafted the bond of fellowship that is still in use today. His bond is a beautiful statement, and I invite us to read it together at that time. Would you join me? He says, as those who believe in religion, as those who believe in freedom, fellowship, and character in religion, as those who believe that the religious life means the thankful, trustful, loyal, and helpful life, and as those who believe that a church is a community of helpers wherein it is made easier to lead such a life, we join ourselves together, name, hand, and heart, as members of North Chapel. The North Chapel was my adaptation. We need your help. We'll need your help again in just a moment. We'll need to share once more as we extend a right hand of fellowship. Some of you may know, and some of you may not know, so let me just say that this right hand of fellowship goes back a ways. It's a biblical concept of shaking hands or embracing arms to say welcome to this community. And this is what we're here to do today, so let us begin. How many of us are here to participate in that ritual this morning? Can you just raise your hand? Would you mind coming forward at this time? And I want to invite you to stand in a line in front of the congregation. Could you turn your yellow pieces of paper over so you can see the side that says fellowshipping ceremony? I want to begin by welcoming you today. Can you please, Jenny, would you mind getting that microphone, turning it on, and just, I want to make sure that we all know our names as we enter this process. So, can you please share your name with us?
Caroline Connolly. Joelle Phoebe. Kristen Rose.
Dave Cook.
Cindy Cook.
Thank you so much. Let us begin. Today, we welcome into our community these new members who have chosen to make a commitment to this congregation by signing our membership book. We are so glad to have you here with us and glad that you have chosen this community to travel with you on life's journey. Will you accept our gifts of fellowship, recovery, and service? Will you offer us your presence and your gift? Will you engage with us as we seek to create a community and a world dedicated to love and justice?
We will.
Congregation, will you welcome these new members with warmth and comfort of fellowship? Will you add your strengths and talents to the new energy that they bring? Will you share your triumphs, our struggles, our community as it grows and changes? Love is the spirit of this church and service is its law. Our promise together is to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Leon,
Yes.
before you do that, can I say something?
Yes.
I represent the committee welcoming and engagement, and I thought you might want to know what it means to become a member. So you might want to do simple things like take the offering, or decorate the altar, or join the choir, or join a committee. The only thing you cannot do as a member is be on a board that oversees all the activities of the church. But you can do those things, everything except the board, without being a member. When you have the desire to become a member, you join the family in another way. So we're very excited you've made this decision.
Now, traditionally, the minister shakes and offers the right hand of fellowship. But in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a ministry is a shared experience. So I'm going to invite you to extend your hands to all of them in fellowship as we move forward today. So metaphysically, I extend to you the right hand of fellowship, but please sit down and I'll catch up with you later. But please take your seats. We stand for the true, and we do not trivialize our faith, because so very much in life depends on it. Because far beyond the grasp of hands, or light that meets the eye, past the reaches of the mind, there we find the key to nature's harmony in an architecture so entwined. Like the birds whose patterns grace the sky, and like all who join in love expanding, the message of peace will rise in flight, taking the weight of the world upon its wings. Welcome to North Chapel. Welcome home. Will you join me in welcoming our new members? Welcome to North Chapel. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. We cast the circle wide, we cast the circle dearly, and every day we cast the circle a little bit more broadly than we did before. Welcome, welcome one and all. May you enjoy this day and this new fellowship moving forward through this beautiful day. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.